welcome to Coffee with the Editor. It's so lovely to have you. You've been with Eswatini Rail, which most people would know as Swazi Rail, since May this year, I think. Is it May or was it March?
Good morning, Philippa. No, it was March, actually. So I actually joined officially 1st of March, but I was in the office on the 27th of March for obvious reasons, with COVID and everything happening. Mm-hmm. So, but yes, since March. In fact, I think the 7th of July was my 100th day officially in this position. So it's been quite a while.
So should we do to you what we do to all our presidents? What have you done in the last 100 days?
I knew that was going to come. I haven't finished drafting my milestones yet. So
let's start with just introducing the audience, and I'm sure they all know, but just to give a little bit of background on Eswatini Railways. So let's start with that, and then we'll talk about some of the projects and ongoing activities.
Eswatini Railway is the only railway in Swaziland, or in Eswatini. It's over 50 years old. It came about because we had an iron ore mine early in the 60s, which was opened. The ore was being exported to Japan. And so that was the birth of the railways. That was, I think, the beginning of what is now an operation that covers probably the three regions of the country, because we don't have the railway in the northern region anymore. Now, on the back of that, the north-south line was built, and it was responsible for, it was used to carry rock phosphate and other commodities from the north of Swaziland, in fact, from the north regions right down to Richards Bay and Durban. In a nutshell, that is how the railway came about. The total network is about 300 kilometers long, so it's probably it's roughly the size of the London Underground network in the UK. Not as busy, but still, we're running big trains. And also, I think Swaziland or Eswatini Railways plays a very pivotal role in feeding the regional railways. Eswatini is a landlocked country. But it's a key railway. Your next question was about projects that we're currently looking at. It's been in the papers a lot. I'll start with the main one, which is the Eswatini Link. It used to be called the Swazi Rail Link. It's a big project that was initiated outside 2011, thereabout, where the concept started for having a railway line going through Eswatini from South Africa. If people can just picture the map of South Africa and Swaziland sitting in the middle of it all in the east, the line will connect from Ermelo through to Swaziland, the northern part of Swaziland, and loop round down south back into the main line, which is the Golel line to Richards Bay, etc. So it's an important project for us because we're looking at getting a lot of transit traffic from South Africa. And I think it will also benefit our South African neighbors in transporting some of the general freight through Swaziland. The second project, in terms of length, let me just go into maybe the different parts of the project. So we have a greenfield part and also a brownfield part. So because we'll be running very long trains, which demand certain geometry, rigorous geometry. So some of the existing railway network, part of the existing railway network will have to be upgraded. Then we have a greenfield site where we'll be building a new railway completely from scratch. So this is from the connection into Swaziland, into the northern part of Swaziland. So it's a massive project. You're talking multi-billion rand, and my role here is to publicize, just make every people aware that here is a massive, will probably be one of the biggest projects in the region, and I've been personally involved in it, so it's close to my heart. So that's one.
When do we start that project?
In essence, in projects, there's various stages that you have to go through. The project has started. That is, the designs, detailed designs have been carried out. There's only minor bits that need to happen, and we also need to move people, unfortunately, to make way for this railway. And as you know, that some of these things take time. So there is work in progress to facilitate construction, but in terms of the detailed design, we know where the rail line is going to traverse. We know how many communities will be affected, whether it's moving homesteads or graveyards or diversions. We know what enabling works are required. So all that is being looked at. And then also, because it's a massive project, we're inviting possible funders. We have streams within the project organization, and each of those streams, whether stakeholder management or technical advisory or financial advisory, etc. So everybody is, I believe, is cooking on gas, for lack of a better phraseology. But yeah, it's an exciting one for me. So construction. So as soon as everything is ready, then construction, and I'm sure we will invite you, Philippa, and also because this is obviously a joint project between Transnet and Eswatini Railway and the two governments. So there's commitment to get this thing done. So when that happens, when the sword ceremony happens, sword cutting ceremony happens, you'll be there.
So I interrupted you on your list of projects just to get some of the detail on the rail link. So let's put you back on page, and you can carry on with the rest of the projects now.
The other projects, Eswatini Railways has an existing container depot or inland container depot. So basically, you can classify it as a port of entry. So it is a port without the sea, I guess. Like you'd have an airport, right? So we have seen traffic volumes grow. This is container traffic. The current facility is now congested, so we'll be expanding that. We've already received funding to do the necessary work. But on top of that, we have another inland container depot, port, which we are planning to construct in the Lowveld at a place called Mbaga. Now, Mbaga, we have one of our main railway stations. It lies on the north-south line, which connects northern part of Swaziland into South Africa, obviously, and down south in Golel. This project also goes hand in hand with what government is planning. So one of the key things that one of the things that I've been rigorously carrying out in this last couple of months is to engage with government ministries to see what plans they have, so that I'm in line with their thinking, and also just making them aware that we're available to assist. So Mbaga is a special economic zone, so everybody is invited to participate, whether you're from the US or from South Africa. And I will be putting up information very soon, as soon as we have everything ready. Right. I'll guess that those are the two main ones, because at a regional, they also impact on what happens in the region. In fact, the drive is to generate as much a diverse business stream as possible. COVID-19 has come with opportunities in a way, because it's just said to people, well, let's look at what we have and how we can exploit that or squeeze the assets that we have. Sweat the assets that we have. So, yeah, I'll say those are the three main ones.
So what is the timeline? I know you said you were going to put up some information as soon as you've finalized it, but what do you think the timeline is for that project? Both projects should happen between this financial year, so 2020, 2021. The Matapo one, we already have received funding for that, so which is very important, because without the cash, there's nothing that you can do with it. So, so there will be bits and pieces of work coming out of that as soon as we have our ducks in a row. But yes, to answer your question, 2021 is what I've committed to. Fantastic. All right, so let's also give our audience a bit of insight into operations in terms of your fleet, and also, you know, how they go about kind of connecting with Eswatini Rail in order to do business with you guys. I know it's pretty much tender-based. Is it all tender-based? And once we've done that, let's just talk about maybe some Fourth Industrial Revolution and what you are envisaging in terms of your operation. Thanks, Philippa. In terms of our day-to-day operations, we don't own a lot of rolling stock. We own sufficient numbers of rolling stock. This regional connectivity is very important. So we are constantly in touch with our neighbors, neighboring railways. In this case, it's Transnet and CFM. So we have locomotives, for instance, or wagons, as the need arises, hired or leased to us from our neighboring railways. But we also have locomotives of our own. So we have about 5 locomotives currently, a few hundred wagons, fewer, which will include fewer wagons, you know, flat wagons, etc. So that's quite a number. But most of our rolling stock is either leased or hired, I guess. Okay, so in terms of Fourth Industrial Revolution, yes, Eswatini it's almost like a thoroughfare, and you obviously move your own tonnages and things like that. But there is probably a perfect opportunity for you guys to really embrace technology. Yes, Philip. I mean, we've mentioned everybody's aware of the COVID-19 pandemic. It has, in fact, this pandemic has accelerated us towards embracing technology, and I'm a firm believer of having better and more efficient ways of working, and also reducing our carbon footprint, etc. So with technology, it also applies in our industry. I mean, we're talking, I know it may sound far-fetched, but really things that we should be doing as railways to improve the traditional ways of working. Our locals burn diesel, and we are pollutants, basically. Yes, in the scheme of things, you balance it out because we're covering long distances, which cancel out the effect of pollution. So there's a trade-off. That's the argument that we would probably put up as railways. But I would say that as railways, we're in a position where we can invent the future, like make the future happen. Whether it is driverless trains, whether it is train control systems controlled via satellite, which is now happening in some parts of the world, and also just making sure that the infrastructure that we have is smart. We use smart
technology. I know there's talk of hyperloops, in terms of how people travel now. This is something that will happen. It's just a matter of time, and if we prepare ourselves for it, that'll be great. I mean, right now we are speaking through Zoom. One of the things that I've introduced in Eswatini Railway was virtual meetings, virtual board meetings, board training. That is a first, and it happened because it had to happen. So I'll just go back to a book that I read very early on in my years. It was a book written by George Orwell. Now, George Orwell is known for Animal Farm, but he wrote another book called 1984. In 1984, it was a fictitious, futuristic world where there will be a big brother watching us everywhere. There'll be screens and so on. These things weren't there when he wrote the book, but this is what he imagined. And guess what? Now we have Big Brother definitely watching us. We have CCTV, we have, all these things. So the fourth industrial revolution will in fact develop on the back of the digital platforms that we have currently. And if we don't, look, we were talking 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions. Now we're up to 8 dimensions. Who would have thought? So this is this is the world that is coming, and we should embrace. Swaziland is Eswatini has embarked on a 2022 strategy to be, to have most of their operations on digital platforms, basically, and I've seen the change. Yes, we're struggling a bit with bandwidth sometimes, but look, this connection that I have with you is quite stable, which we wouldn't have had, I guess, a couple of years ago. So it's happening, and it's exciting.